Gary Gensler did, 24 hours worth of lectures on Bitcoin. I mean, Janet Yellen must have people that are informing her about this. The president, all of these Congress people. What do you think is happening on a greater level? Because
I suspect many of the people in power don't really understand this at the level they need to.
Okay. Right.
And so that might be a tough pill to swallow.
Well, that resonates with me because when I was a reporter, before I was focused on Bitcoin, I really felt no hope for the future. And I wasn't one of the millennials who's like, I'm not going to have kids because the world's going in the, in a bad direction. But I really did look into the future and I thought, what is going to pull us out of this polarization, division, wealth disparity? I couldn't see a solution in sight. And I was reporting on all of these issues just ballooning, and, elections would come, I would cover them. The politician, doesn't matter what side, would spend money, and that money would disappear and the problem just ballooned. And I'm like, something's wrong. And then Bitcoin focused my attention to really what the problem was and how to fix it. So it gave me a lot of hope. But I have a question for you, because I'm someone I've been optimist and I want to believe in the best in people. And I know that our system can corrupt, and especially how money is married to politics in this country. I think it leads to a lot of the corruption and the rent seeking. But I do want to believe that the people that run for office have good intentions, at least when they start. But just out of curiosity, I mean, you see these leaders, right? They have access to all the same information that we do. They could read the Bitcoin Standard. There's advocacy efforts that are underway across the country to educate policymakers. Gary Gensler did, 24 hours worth of lectures on Bitcoin. I mean, Janet Yellen must have people that are informing her about this. The president, all of these Congress people. Why do you think that there's some element of we don't want this network to be in the hands of everybody, or we don't understand it, we don't have that? Like, what do you think is happening on a greater level? Because for me, I'm like, the Bitcoin information's out there. How do you not believe in this and adopt it?
If you were running, you're president.
Yeah.
What do you do? What's the first thing you do? Could you say we're going all in on Bitcoin right now?
I mean, I would legalize it as tender for sure.
Yeah, but fair. But as you did, your dollar would lose value around the world unless you. So you'd have to be careful on how you came at that, right? And you'd have to and so. That's giving maybe too much credit. I suspect many of the people in power don't really understand this at the level they need to, because it's such a system change, and that system removes a whole bunch of the power that they have, and you could say, I like to think. Dictators going onto Bitcoin actually help the network and remove the power of the dictator later on, and bring a whole bunch more people on. So if you're in Bitcoin, one of the hardest things about Bitcoin is you have to realize that everyone else is on it too, and they make it better, and you have to realize people are on it that you don't agree with,
right?
And they also make the better for everybody, just because of the nature of the network.
Right.
And so that might be a tough pill to swallow if you're in the U.S. and you've benefited from a monetary regime that has had a negative consequence around the world, but your people have benefited from it, and now that same benefit that your people were benefiting from it. Essentially, what China is doing is using that monetary policy against the U.S. Because the balance of trade, China keeps labor low, which hollows out the U.S. industry. China used to buy bought treasuries to keep the interest rates low. Stopped buying them in about 2015.
Right.
And U.S. had to start monetizing its debt. And so essentially, you're making U.S. citizens poorer and poorer on an illusion of wealth, and you're transferring more and more power to a geopolitical rival through a dollar reserve system, that worked for a long time that just can't work anymore. The world needs a neutral reserve currency.
Right.
And Bitcoin, I believe, is that neutral reserve currency.